Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I have with me George here. He is a professional water skier and a really good friend of Harry, who is an awesome coach. Thank you so much, George, for your time. Please introduce yourself.
All right. Well, yeah, you know what? I'm excited to be here. Harry gave me a call and asked me if I would connect with you and chatting about athletes and the challenges and also the triumphs that we've had throughout our careers and into normal life, what we would call normal life. And I'm just excited to be here. I'm in a little town called Wonder Lake, Illinois, about 40 miles north of Chicago at the moment, and looking forward to getting out of this cold weather and heading south here soon.
Awesome. So, how did you get into water skiing?
Well, as I mentioned, I grew up here in a little tiny town called Wonder Lake, Illinois, and it's about an 800-acre lake. So I had the opportunity to learn how to ski when I was a young kid. 4 years old, I was already water skiing, and we had a water ski team or a club here on
Wow.
the lake. And unfortunately, yeah, and unfortunately, my family didn't have any ski boats, but I was able to join the ski team, and I fell in love with water skiing, and just it became my life.
And when you compete in that, what are the criterias? What you pay, what you measure
Well,
this?
that broke up there one more time.
What are the requirements when you're in a competition and you're going for the best score or the, like to win something? What are they, is it the, because I'm not familiar with water skiing. So you have to explain how anyone not only just gets into it, but competes.
Yeah, that's a great question. And there's so many facets to water skiing, so many different elements, like gymnastics or anything like that, where it just depends on what you become good at. Now, the process that I went through was I was a show skier. So we did mainly shows. And then I started skiing for SeaWorld in Orlando, Florida, right out of high school, and that prepared me to be an all-around water skier. So I do a little bit of everything. However, my professional pro tour career was in freestyle jumping,
Oh,
and that
wow.
consisted of going off the ramp and doing, yeah, and doing all sorts of tricks like you would, see a gymnast doing on the ground. We would do off the jump ramps and compete for distance and form and all of those things. And was on ESPN, and it was a really great time in my life.
Wow. That sounds exhilarating. What can you share about one of your biggest successes and what you learned from that?
Well, I I think the biggest success I had was in 1984. I had a really bad knee accident, and it completely took me out of skiing for 2 years. And my doctors told me I would never ski again. I would never go over the jump ramp again. And in 1987, I proved them wrong and rehabbed my way back to getting over that jump ramp. And I competed on the pro tour and finished fifth in the world after that, time of being told no. And it continued to bring up things in my past of, being told no, you're too small, you're never going to, be able to do this sport. And I went through that my whole life, and came back to finish fifth in the world in 1989. And it was really the peak of my career was after being told no multiple times. And so it's something that I've never listened to. And the more no's I get, the more I want to do what I'm looking to do.
That is incredible. It says that you're very determined and you have perseverance and you have the grit, the mental toughness to basically go prove yourself and everybody else that you have what it takes to succeed. Incredible. And who are the people or persons that have influenced you or that have made a big impact on your life?
The majority of those people are are, well, for one, my folks and growing up in the Midwest and, being taught to work at a very early age. I can remember asking my dad for my first water ski, and he said, if you want a water ski, go get a job. And I was
Mhm.
12 years old. And, it's exactly what I did. So I knew I had to work for whatever I had. I was always a little bit smaller, but I was very athletic. So the basketball team, any of those things that I was always told I was, too small or not big enough. And, I was always able to prove them wrong. Now, the majority of my biggest influences came after I retired from water skiing and I got into the professional world.
Okay. Okay. And so if you look back, what is a failure or a challenge that you had to overcome that made you the person you are today?
It's very interesting because when you look at the pro athletes and what happens when we retire and how quiet it gets and trying to figure out where you fit in the world.
Mhm.
And so I've had my ups and downs. I mean, I've had the highest of highs, but I've also had serious struggles to where it almost took my life. And to be back where I'm at today is it's just mind-boggling. And I got into selling boats at first, and that didn't work out. And so it was another struggle back, to figure out what I wanted to do. And that's when I met Harry. Actually, was during that struggle I had met Harry, and we went on another nutritional company ride together that had huge highs, but at the end had the ultimate low and lost everything. And someday I'll share that story with you because it's quite the story, to have come back from. And then there was some mental health issues that I got into, and unfortunately alcohol took over my life. And those struggles, ups and downs and different things like that, to where just celebrated 7 years sobriety. And life today is such a just a joy to be sitting here today. I'm in my RV at the moment,
Mhm.
and I'm traveling the country. And my current business is doing fantastic. And I'm here in Illinois because we help take care of my dad on a full schedule with my brothers and sisters. And it's just amazing, the struggles, but yet I guess it's like the darkness and the sunlight. You experience these ultimate highs, but I don't think you experience those with really having challenges that you've had to go through first.
Absolutely. I would say that anyone you grow the most during your challenges, and you grow the most during uh, the lowest parts of your life, the parts where you really have to dig deep, and it you it comes to a place where you're like, what am I doing? What is my purpose? And what do I want to do about it? Because some people, they will not do anything and they're miserable. And it seems like for you, you're like the part of you that says no, 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 that other people have said when you were younger, and you're like, oh, I'm going to prove them wrong. That's the part of you said, oh, well, I'm going to prove to myself, I'm going to make this work. But back to your RV, my sister and I drove an RV across the country from Maryland to California so I could help my sister on a cross country bike ride from uh, Portside, California, all the way to Annapolis, Maryland, over 3,000 miles. And
Wow.
part of the trip, I did the one-way trip over there. And believe me, it's terrifying to drive an RV up Hollywood Hills.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know how we did it, but we somehow did it. And also just to see her every day show up. And it was like, I helped her mentally and physically prepare. And I said, if you get everyone who can support you on every leg, like I will give you all this time. And it was like, just knowing how much you have to prepare when you have to compete is like, how did you prepare yourself?
It was interesting because there was the physical and there was the mental. So the physical training was, luckily I water skied in a ski show. Every single day I did 2 or 3 water ski shows a day. So whether it was doing the barefooting or just the trick jumping or stuff like that. The more you're on the water, the more your mindset and your body is just become natural to what you're doing.
Mhm.
And that is really when I got into my first real deep, um, I guess you would call them meditations, or visualization was more what I called it at the time,
Yeah.
to where I got really deep into it, where before tournaments and stuff, I mean, I could feel my hair moving. Um, and it was kind of interesting. I had an accident, I had a crash, and I broke my eardrum.
Oh my goodness.
And, and the following week, I had to put a plug in my ear because of the broken eardrum. Well, I couldn't do what I needed to do with one ear plug because I just didn't have my balance. So I plugged both ears, and I continued my pro tour career wearing earplugs because it could make everything so quiet, and I didn't hear the wind and the water and all the stuff once I put those earplugs in, and I could just visualize whether I was sitting on the ground or I was out on the water. I could visualize almost the same thing, to a real degree of feeling like I was on the water even when I wasn't.
I can relate to that because I'm a competitive pianist. And the way I used to memorize my pieces, it wasn't sitting at the piano, but I could sit anywhere and visualize myself playing as if I'm playing on the piano. But that was how I would mentally prepare. That's very cool that you trained yourself to do that because that is a skill and it takes time to master. It takes time to build that skill. So,
It's an extremely difficult one, especially with a mind that doesn't stop.
mhm.
It's constantly creative, and it's constantly what's next. And to have that time of, it's one of the things that's eluded me that I work on every day, is having some serenity in my life today. And I get bits and pieces of it because my mind just wants to keep going and doesn't want to take that time to kind of shut down and absorb everything. So yep, it's a tough thing.
Wow. If you have time, I do want to hear the story of your highs and lows with Harry. If you want to share that story, I do want to hear. I'm really curious now.
Okay. All right. So yeah, this it's such great memories. When I shared with you that I had gotten into the boat business,
Yeah.
and unfortunately that was in a really bad time, and everything was not going well, in everywhere. The economy was in a mess, and I literally had a friend of mine walk in my boat shop, and he shared the product that Harry was in the same company. He says, "Hey George, I've been taking this stuff, and it's really made me feel great. And I think maybe you can make some money with it." He knew I was broke. He knew I was really struggling, and I went down to his office with $32 in pennies to sign up in that company.
Whoa.
Literally, yeah. My wife and I, we had been stealing from the change, and just trying to do anything to make our boat shop work. And I bought 32 single packets of that WOW product, and that they had. It was for energy. And anyway, I shared it with some people, and that day, and all of a sudden everybody wanted to buy it. And I joined the company that day. And long story short, like, it was my first 2 weeks in the business. We did like $30,000 in sales of the product. And I ended up going to one of their things, and won a $6,300 bonus.
Amazing.
And so that was like $63 million to me at the time. And it was such a pleasure to work with a product line like we had, because you didn't really have to sell it, it sold itself. And it changed my life because I was not skiing at the time. And I started using it, and I lost some weight. And mainly, I had 3 right knee surgeries that kind of ended my career. And I got back to skiing, and skied many years utilizing that product. In fact, I'm using it to this day. Just ordered some more of it, their athletic product, here today.
That's beautiful.
And yeah, and you know what? Harry was on a run, and we created a training center that was absolutely cranking, and the owners had a fight, and everything, with the momentum and everything we had, everything came crashing down, and people split up. And we rebuilt it again. Harry and I kind of went separate directions, and then we ended up getting back together on a normal job situation at one time, knocking doors in Chicago in the winter. I mean, the stuff that we've done is insane.
Wow.
But
But
you
that
know,
those experiences, I didn't mean to cut you off, but those experiences, you and him have that special bond though, because you've been in the trenches together and you've seen the good, bad, and ugly together. And when you share that, there's that understanding like, yeah, we got each other's back.
yeah, because I mean, he was raking it in at the time and working his tail off, and we were all working really, really hard. And to watch to just get about to the Holy Grail, and that seemed to be what my challenge always was I was always right at the Holy Grail, and I worked my tail off to get there only to watch something happen.
Mm.
And then I ended up going one direction, Harry went another, and I built it again. I built it back up to serious momentum, only to come back from a foreign country. I went and opened a foreign country, came back, got back on the tarmac in LA with a lot of business in a briefcase to a voicemail that said, "We regret to inform you your company is closed."
Oh my gosh. Ah, I'm so sorry.
And yeah, that's when I lost everything, and went from making, finally getting myself back to where we needed to be, and we completely had to figure out something to do with our lives because it was just not happening. So then we went on, a bunch of other ventures and different things, and um, here we are today. I've got my business I've had now for more than 8 years, and I work by myself, and it works fantastic, and I get to travel, and I got my triple monitors right up here on in the front of the RV, and a nice office set up, and a plug and a Wi-Fi code, and I'm ready to go.
That's awesome. Wow. You have there are a lot of untold stories that I'm sure that inspire people. If you can share one of your most inspiring stories or life lessons that you would tell your younger self, what would that be?
Oh boy. Um, that's a good one because there's multiple areas from what I heard this, and this made the most sense to me when I was trying to figure out why my life wasn't working. And sometimes it really wasn't what I was doing that wasn't the problem, it was what I wasn't doing. And so I had a guy explain to me that your life is like a wagon wheel,
Mhm.
and the center of it is your spirituality, whatever that might be. It's got to be something, whether it's the doorknob or, it's God or whatever it is that you believe in. And then you have spokes on the wagon wheel. And those spokes make up everything in your life, from your financial, your spiritual, your physical, mental, all of those things. And I would find many of those out of balance, and one of the ones that was always out of balance, that always messed me up, was my financial wheel, my financial spoke. And being in the business that I have now, it blows me away how people are conditioned to live with credit card debt, and to not buy things that they can afford versus, oh, I got a credit card, I can go buy this. um,
Yeah.
and to not put 10% away, out of every check from the time that you're 12 or 13. Or it's not like that now. I mean, I got a job when I was 12 years old, making an actual paycheck, but it was a little different now. If I would have been taught those things and actually practice those principles, how different my life would have been.
Mhm.
So, from a financial standpoint. And then, for me, it's my faith is everything. I mean, it's unbelievable the gifts that come when you give,
Yeah.
and, continue to do good things for people. And, I'm just lucky to be here. My gratitude, is every day is a gift for me. And, you know, I've been in the trenches down there really far a bunch of times. And, it's because it had to teach me all those things to get to where I'm at right now, which it's really crazy.
That's what an incredible story. It just goes to show you're right about the mindset of wealth, I feel like when people talk about success, they see it, but if they may not necessarily make the connection. I have to, if I want to get great at it, I have to study it. And I had a client, for example, I had to guide this particular client to help them see that some of the decisions you're making, if that's going to put you in credit card debt, put you in a negative balance on your bank account, why are you even going to consider that idea that is going to put you, I mean, like set you back? And sometimes like they don't have that mindset that, they think like, oh, the plastic will pay for everything. No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And like I was taught, like
Yep.
you don't spend money you don't have. You earn it, you save it, you invest, and to be someone who practices those principles, even if you start very, very small, it will compound, and over time, something else comes from it where you're like, wow, I can actually buy a whole car in cash, buy a home in cash. I can invest back and let my money do work for me. And those that figured
Yep.
it out and applied it, and when they start with very, very little, and they watch that compound, it's like getting 1% better every single day. It's the ideas and the things that you do compound. So, wow. Last question.
Yep.
What is your best advice that you would leave for our audience?
Based on this year and multiple years in my past that I didn't stay consistent with this discipline,
Mm-hmm.
this discipline for this year, when I look at my journal, I suggest journaling
Mm-hmm.
every day. Every day, whether it's a sentence or two or three, I journal every day. And in that same journal in the back is all my goals. And when I look at what was accomplished this year for myself, as I look back, it's absolutely mind blowing. What transpired this year for me by writing those goals down. What did I want? What did I want to accomplish? How was I going to accomplish it? And you know what? There was not a lot of writing under the how exactly. I just knew that these are what I wanted to do. And if I could do these daily disciplines, the financial end of it would show up.
Yep.
And so this year has been just a total craziness. I look at my goal list and the whole thing from my wants list was completed this year. And I just got back from a 3-week vacation to New Hampshire, Vermont, and Maine in October. And it was absolutely spectacular, just mind boggling, the things based on journaling. So if you're not journaling, and waking up in the morning and just jotting down, the things, and, I've got a little saying that it says GGI or GGU. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, that just says, it just says God's got it and God's got you. And I journal that. I keep that, keep my faith in what I'm doing on a daily basis. And it does make a difference. So if there was one thing that I could leave today, it's definitely, pick up a journal, make some commitments, set some goals, and jot down everything in that thing, because it'll pay dividends.
Awesome. I do journal, and I do agree with you. I have to say that I'm really, really honored and inspired to get to know you and share your story. And I do see that not only does God have a big calling on your life, but you're using your God-given talents to serve, to bless, and to empower other people to go pursue their best life. It's incredible. So thank you so much for your time. And thank you all, everyone, for listening. That's a wrap.